Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a few minutes of fun. I'm going to have a few minutes of fun today, just pulling together a few piles of snippets into little clusters, and these might work as card toppers, they might go in journals. I might decide I love them all as a collection so much that I create a little accordion journal with them. But I think the key to creating snippets, clusters, and all of that sort of business is to gather some things that just make you happy. Gather some bits and bobs that make you excited to play with them. So I've got some of the little grassy, wild grassy snippets that we created a couple of weeks back. I will link to that video. I've of course got lots of Tim Holtz Idea-ology bits and bobs, the paper dolls, photo booth photos, ephemera packs, even some papers from the backdrops sets, and yeah, word stickers, mummy cloth, metal bits and bobs. I've got some book pages torn out of an old book. I've got those watercolor backgrounds we made in another session, and lots of little ephemera bits that are pre-stamped, some of them on painted matints and all of that kind of business. There is an episode for that, and if I remember, I will also link to that. I'm just going to grab things. So from this pile of stuff I've got here, let's start with a book page fragment, grab and tear. Let's connect that to one of those, and let's connect that to one of those. I think one of the other keys to this is never to stop and think too hard. Just keep moving. These can be any sort of shape and size, really. And it's about looking at scale and seeing what feels like it belongs together. I quite like those girls with that, for instance. I might give them an extra little label or two just to start us off, and enjoying that colour behind them. Going to take some of this watercolour paper that we created the other day, maybe slide that in there. That's looking quite nice. I sort of feel like I'd quite like that a little more visible. My little grassy snippet is very pretty, so I'm going to keep that in view. I love mummy cloth for adding a little bit of texture. So just taking a bit of that, snip it off. There it goes. Really roughly. I'm cutting very roughly because what I chiefly love about mummy cloth is when it's as messy as possible. So there's always some pulling apart to be done. We'll slide that in maybe directly behind the girls, I think. In fact, I might cut it right in half so that it comes, there we go. That's what I want. I want it really stretching across the whole of the cluster. There we go. So if you're somebody who creates junk journals or does a lot of journaling, having some clusters like this can just be a really lovely way to be ready to play. These are printed, I think I stamped these tickets, so they're quite fun. They're already nicely, a little bit of horizontality, quite nice in there. And then if you're somebody who enjoys sewing machines, you could absolutely stitch these together. I've probably mentioned on numerous occasions that sewing machines and I do not get along. It's the number of times in my life when somebody who owns a sewing machine has tried to train me to use that I like that torn edge, but I like the colours better that way up. So easy. I'll just create myself a little torn edge down this side, and that's given me another little bit of paper that I might use in a snippet. This one of the troubles is you never get to throw anything away when you work in this kind of way, because every tiny little snippet could go somewhere. I'm quite inclined. I was picking blackberries in the garden the other day, and this little label that says blackberry jam feels like it's about time it came onto a snippet collection. So maybe something like that. So I don't sew. I've sat down with people and they've tried to show me how to use their sewing machines, and their sewing machines have broken. That's happened 2 or 3 times in my life. Proficient sewers proficient users of sewing machines, and I have broken their sewing machines. I just feel like it's not meant to be. I do have a little mini sewing machine from, I think it was from John Lewis, and it was recommended as an absolute basic sewing machine that a complete beginner could get to grips with. And even then, I've had zero luck getting it to work. I might go so far as to give it another go one of these days, but really, overall, it's a disaster anytime I try. So there we go. I think I like that better than having that one. And what I like about when I'm creating these is to have a little bit of messiness. So in the absence of a sewing machine, obviously glue is an option, but one of the things I quite like to do when I'm just pulling things together very quickly is grab, it's under the desk, the Tim Holtz tiny attacher. And even though I'm going through this poor girl's stomach, like so, that's holding most of what I've got here is held in place by that. This little ticket is going to slide out if I'm not careful, so I might go behind this girl and just give that a little snip so that I know it's going to stay put. This blackberry jam one I am going to glue. So at this point it's a sort of combination of what's going to hold these together nice and quickly so that I can get on and play with the next one. That's too much glue, but we'll live for now. There we go. That's enough of that for now, that one. This one I love with these greens. So I'm thinking maybe these two women caught my eye today. This glorious, happy day they're having. I also think she's incredibly beautiful. So I'm going to take this time a photo booth snapshot. I sometimes ink the edges of these. It just gives you an extra little vintage look. I think they're gorgeous there. What I might do is tear down the side of this snippet. So I've got a torn edge of book page one side. I've got a torn edge of grassiness the other side. And this is what I mean about not thinking too hard. One might try to overthink. Oh no, I don't want to rip my beautiful grassy snippet up. But look at what that torn edge gets me just by making the boldness of that move. Quite like, in fact, that one that I've just torn off the other side. There it goes. Yeah, perfect. In fact, I might glue that before I change my mind. So just a little touch of glue. I don't necessarily need these to be perfectly glued. This glue is nearly empty. I have in fact started the next one because I needed lots of glue, but if I lie it on its side, I might be able to get it to behave. And just lining those two up, that's really nice. I like it. The other thing I've got hanging around are these rather brilliant old vintage sellotape stickers that Tim Holtz brought out a couple of seasons back. Can't remember how long ago. And they're another really nice way to attach something with a bit of vintage styling. So it looks like worn and weathered sellotape, years old. Just brilliant. Love those. You can create similar things with sellotape and alcohol inks. You can create your own versions of that. But I think, you know, again, I'm not in the market for spending a lot of time on this. So again, I'm going to go in with the tiny attach. Let's have a, I've got this pack of mummy cloth seems to have these threads just round this end. So I'm going to use those. Going to put those in behind these little labels, like so, just spreading across my snippet. It's lovely texture. I can pull it apart more later. But if I get it just attached, this was stamped, so this is, what does that one come from? Field Notes, I think the set is called, stamp set. And I just stamped it on an old book margin, so it's already on vintage paper. And I'm just going to grab that down. The joy of the tiny attachers is they are tiny. And so A, you don't see them very much, and B, if you do catch sight of them, you've just got this lovely little vintage metal element. Speaking of metal elements, I did think I might like some metal on some of these. I do like a bit of metal, as you know. I think that's quite nice on there, isn't it? I'll leave it lying there for a minute while I do some more. Let's start this next one with a bit more colour. Excuse me, colour. I think I'm going to tear down this like so. And then what I might do is get myself, what else have we got? Oh, got these, as I said, bits of Backdrops design papers. There's some really nice labels on here, and they're advertising. They're little fabric labels. So I'm thinking I might just take a piece of that. That's quite a nice snippet of vintage paper. Ooh, yes, I like that with the blue. And do we want it with the torn side? Yes, I think we probably do. So let's just gather another. Since we've got fabric, I've also got some of my vintage dishcloth picked up in French brocante on my recent PaperArtsy retreat. Oof! And it rips beautifully, and you get these lovely raggedy, scraggedy edges. So I'm going to rip across as well. I seem to have got some paint or ink on it there. I'm sure at some point I'll have a use for a bit with paint or ink on, but at the moment I'm more interested. If we go this way, then I can have those lovely bits of fabric a little more visible. Sort of thinking this should be that. So wouldn't it be great to be able to sew this one? If you're a sewer, have at it. I sadly am not gonna battle, particularly in the current heat. I'm not going to start battling with the sewing machine. Got these other little metal bits. This one says Design Studio, which I just think could be a really lovely accent to have with this little snippet. I almost feel like that's enough on that one. I'm just wondering where that bit of grass that I ripped off went to. I wonder. You can probably see from your vantage point up there on the camera. I sort of like that exactly as it is, and I'm just wondering about using some proper attachments for that metal, because I think that also might be quite funky with the fabric, with this. So I'm going to grab a couple of those long fasteners. I store them in, and these were pan pastel accessories. Oh well, you see, you haven't seen the pan pastels in action at all, ever, have you? Going to do some more ripping of that, but I like those threads coming out. I like that. That at the moment is doing enough for me. You could have a photo in there as well. Let's just trim her and see what we think. Or we could go photoless for this one and save her for the next one. So you can see this process is, the desk is messy, and that's sort of the point, because one of the other things that happens when the desk is messy, I'm going to use her with some more of this. I'm going to keep this one free of photos, but I'm going to use her with some more of this. So I am going to just put a little bit of glue in here. It's getting all caught up in all those threads, but that's joyous. That's sort of part of the fun of this, is letting those threads run wild. They'll get a little bit tamed as we start to pin things down. So let's put a little more glue on top of here, a little bit more glue here, so that this will hold. You could absolutely rough up the edges of this. Or we could rough up the edges of this a bit. It's a bit too pristine at the moment. So let's make it a little bit messy, just with the edge of the blade there. And you can also come in absolutely fine with that ripping, not a problem. A little bit of ink, just what's on the sponge here. Again, for a little bit of messiness. Then, if I want to put this on with the holes through, then I just need my little brad. There's a bradawl from the toolbox. well, there's another one in the toolbox. This one now lives in the craft room. Usually what I'll do is I'll put the first one through, open it out, fasten it. That's the long fastener. That's what happens with that. So it holds on. Then just to make sure it's straight, I rarely make both holes straight away. It's straight enough. It's a snippet. Who knows what direction I'm going to put it in. That's going through the fabric as well. So the magic of the bradawl, it's an awl, is the shorthand for it. So separating out those two ends so that that will hold on like so. What I sort of want is another bit of fabric, maybe just through the front here. And I'm hoping, yes, I can rip a nice fine piece, just a little, like so. Come on, come away. It rips beautifully easily until you really need it to. And because this is not glued down, I think I'm probably going to be able to, maybe even with that awl, poke that through there. So I've got another little bit of fabric doing that. Is that not fun? Let's rip it at the edges. Get it as messy as possible. Great. Love it. Love it. Little dash of glue, just so that that will go nowhere. But it doesn't need fully gluing down. I've got bits hanging off. I've got bits torn in various places. What a delight. Grand. So that'll do for another at the moment. Just looking at this bit, I'm wondering whether on that one, maybe instead of a big blocky piece like that, we go with something round. Might be better. Yes, I like that. So let's have another of these. Quite like to use a silver one if I can find one. Yeah, or silver. There we go. Have a little dig. So I'll maybe do one more on camera, and then I may be going to gather a few more off camera, which you're just going to have to come back for. Let's put that through there. So there's another little brad going through. Yes, that's what I want. That's very good. That one's fine. So let's use another little bit of this. I love that. I love the, I don't know if you can see that these were advertising bits of fabric. So it's just really nice to be reinserting some real fabric, because that's clearly what's photographed here. I think she wants to come in there. I'm wondering if we want another of these snippety grassy bits. It's going to, if it's going behind, it's going to want to be quite present. Let's see, quite tall is what I'm looking for. Something quite tall. I don't want to, oh, that's quite nice. What other ones have we got? That's a little one. It seems a bit of a shame to use one that's got words on, because that'll go somewhere else. The grasses I can live without. Maybe something like that. And like that, except I do like the prices on that one. Maybe it's like that. Then we lose a bit of the fabric. I'll live. This is a bit dull up here, so maybe we'll just get rid of it. Off it goes. And then instead we've got a ripped edge, which is kind of much more fun. A little bit of grassiness going on below, quite like that. Or if we go lower down, oh, it's silly to use the that's better. So you're going to say, oh, but you ripped the other one for nothing. Not for nothing. It'll be used for something else. I've zeroed out. That's quite good. I'm going to go for another ripped edge at the top here. I just like the texture of the ripped edges. That's what makes me happy. I think she goes there. I think that's quite good. Do we want a little bit of greenery behind her as well? Yeah, or blue. Ooh, that's quite interesting. Let's go green. So tearing another piece of this. So what we're creating here is a bunch of coordinated snippets. So it will be really nice if they all continue to live together, or they'll be really nice as individual pieces if I were to decide to use them in something like an accordion journal, a handmade book. Then I've immediately got pieces that are going to speak to one another, that are going to connect with one another. I'm just looking at torn edges and thinking I'd like a torn edge there, thinking I'd like a torn edge there. So I haven't stopped looking at the ones that are over on the other side. I quite like that is now shorter than the grassy element. So the grassy element is the main thing I'm looking at there. This one's still very wobbly. Let's take out that and take out a bit of that. There we go. Let's take out a bit of that. I sort of feel like they need something else, but I'm not sure what at the moment. I like that exactly as it is. I'm going to put a snippet of glue, a smear of glue down onto here just to hold that a little more in the angle I want it. Grand, enjoying that. Let's see if we can pull together one more quick one on camera. I do like this end of this blue paper. It seems silly not to use it. I'd like to come back in maybe with another bit of book page, maybe a smaller fragment of book page this time. So we've got two big fragments of book page. So let's take that somewhere like so. That's quite nice. Maybe another paper doll is what we're after, because we've got two of those. Let's see, who are you? Nah, she's a little bit twee. She might be the one. We'll see. What else have we got? I can't tell you which edition any of these are, I'm afraid, because as you can see, I just tipped my paper dolls into one. Yeah, maybe I'm not averse to her. Oh, I know what else I've got hanging around here. Got some little butterfly stickers and things. I'm just wondering whether that might be fun to add into the mix. These are a bit too pink for my liking. Oh, look. Maybe that's what's missing over here. I have got blue ones as well, but they're very, very blue. So you never know when you're getting these. And yes, these were bought from evil Temu. Before I worked out exactly how evil Temu is. And they were plagiarising my stamps. And then I found that they're plagiarising stamps, dies, all kinds of things that the creative industry will collapse if we continue to allow this. But since I've already paid for these, I'm afraid I'm going to use them. How do we feel about that? No, they're too blue. Too blue. Maybe what I want to stick with is something that's got a little touch of contrast. So these are pinks and creams. I do quite like this yellow one. It's a bit big for her, but maybe it's good with them. What else have we got? Oh, that one's quite pretty. Yeah, maybe she gets a little butterfly there. Something like that. And maybe, since it's see-through, maybe I quite like a butterfly with this one that we created earlier. Let's just see. Or this one that's in process here. Oh, she's quite good with a butterfly, isn't she? Maybe there. Okay, I'm going to leave that there and see how I feel about it. What other ones have we got? I do feel like it wants something over here, but I can't quite work out what at the moment. What was the other one I had? Just little sort of dragonfly affairs. Maybe that's what it needs. Oh, I do like that. That I do like. As a thing, yes. Okay, that might be something. Let's see what other dragonflies we've got. So this is shopping my stash. This is just digging around to see what's here that I haven't put into action previously. but could make quite a nice element on something like this. I do love that one, so I'm going to see if I can find a place for it. This I'm going to stick to that. Quite simple, quite minimal, maybe a little label just also tucked in behind there. Quite like that. Quite like that. Let's use a little bit of this glue that's running out to just hold that down. You can see I'm not doing a full-on gluing. It means I can still tuck other things in if I decide that I want some more in the future. If we move her up a little bit, there'll be a bit more room to play with butterflies and so on. Pop that there and that there. Was that the game? Quite like that. Might want a slightly bluer label. That's better. And maybe, yeah, this becomes the point where you could faff forever. So I've started overthinking again. Did you spot the moment when I started overthinking? It's probably when the butterfly stickers came out, because I don't use stickers that often. These do peel off and stick, but it's usually a bit of a game to do it, and people are always telling me the solution, and then at the point when I'm doing it I forget what the solution is. Oh, I can feel it coming apart. Come on, behave, play nicely. I've forgotten. You're just all going to have to tell me again. Grand. I'm going away to peel this off. There we go, stuck down. This one I'm just going to leave like that for now. I've just been having a look at him over this, which I rather like, and I think what I want behind is something as simple as maybe a bit of book page, just adding a snippety layer. There it goes. Maybe we'll roughen up the edges of this. Yeah, so I think I probably got halfway through the sentence about it's great that the desk is a mess during these kinds of processes, because accidentally you'll put something down on top of something else and suddenly realize it's exactly what you want to have happening. So for instance, I wanted to get him off her face, so I threw him to the side and he landed on these grassy snippety bits, and at that point you just go, yep, that's where he wants to be. Simple as that, that one. I think maybe some metal. Let's just get a little bit of glue so that that can hold on. Let's pop him there. Am I gonna have another go at this on camera? Yay, that one worked. Okay, so why were you cooperative? Because I love you so much. I was uncertain about the other butterfly. I was conflicted. There he is. Perfect. Just perfect. Very simple, but it makes me happy. So sometimes just sticking to the basics can be really effective. Do we want this one here? Do we want him that side of the fabric? I do quite like him over that vintage paper. It's good. Yeah, the dragonflies are coming up more easily. I wonder why that should be. Let's tuck his tail just down in there, if I can get it there. And then he's just going to come over the top like so. And this little bit of fabric is still there to come over there. Very good. Very good. So you can see one could have a whole day of just playing with torn bits of paper, little extras that you can continue to add. I'm wondering about some gears on a couple of these, because I do like a gear or two. Industrial is where I started, and those moments when the rusty industrial comes out to play can still make me really happy. I think it might be another of those. Or that one. Yeah, and if I do those, I'll probably glue them rather than use the bradawl again. Gather your pieces. Gather something that brings you joy. Unexpected little elements. Things that are going to make you smile as you use them. and just gather bits and pieces. And then, as I say, they're ready to go in a journal page, ready to go on as a card topper. And yeah, you can just continue these white flowers we've been doing. You may not have seen that episode yet, but there's one that could just go straight in as a layer with those poppies, even coming sideways. She's going to be great with those. Oh, look at that, with poppies coming out. So journal pages, all those kinds of things. That episode is coming up if you haven't seen it. I'm not quite sure of the timing at the moment of what's coming out when, but lots more coming your way. I hope you'll enjoy seeing these. I hope you've enjoyed seeing these snippety bits coming together. Oh, look. This is what I mean about accidents. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So join me for the close-up just to see if I've added any more bits to these. You know, one of the things that's going to happen is going to be some white spatter. Thanks so much for your company. If you've enjoyed this, do give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. If you hit the, I think it's promote is probably the hype button. I'm still getting to grips with what all this hyping business is about. Thanks so much, as always, for your company. Check the description below the video for any connected videos with the backgrounds that we've made in previous episodes and lists of the ingredients that I've used today. Thanks so much for your company and happy crafting all.